It's just gone 1900 hours or 7 p.m. here in London, and it's time for our SONGUN007 KFA UK British group for the study of the Juche idea live stream. And good evening from London, and good evening from me, Dr. Dermot Hudson, the chairman of the British group for the study of the Juche idea and chairman of the Korean Friendship Association of the UK. Now, I'm going to speak for about half an hour to 40 minutes. We've got quite a lot of subjects tonight. We're going to focus on the advertised topic, Juche versus Trotskyism, but there's a lot of other stuff going on, and I just welcome our friends who've just joined us. I hope there'll be more joining us throughout the course of the evening. And of course, you can watch this later if you don't have time. And yes, good evening to our friend from Sri Lanka. So the core topic is Juche versus Trotskyism, but as I said just now, there's a lot of different things going on. So I'm going to start by saying a few words about a couple of current topics that arise. Firstly, I think the big news is that respected Marshal Kim Jong-un, the Supreme Commander of the Korean People's Army, visit the special operations base of the Korean People's Army to observe different training exercises, and he made a number of important remarks, and he strongly and scathingly attacked the South Korean puppets who've been acting very bombastic of late. And there's an interesting quote from him which is as follows, and I quote, "To pray for a good luck of survival in a military conflict with the nuclear weapons state would be a foolish thing that should not be done. If such situation is created, the permanent existence of Seoul and the Republic of Korea would be impossible." End of quotation. And secondly, partly related to the above, there was the excellent statement that Comrade Kim Yo-jong issued in connection with the South Korean puppets swaggering and boasting on the so-called Army Day of South Korea on Tuesday, 1st of October. And Comrade Kim Yo-jong, Vice Department Director of the Central Committee of the Workers' Party of Korea, issued an incisive statement on the 3rd of October, pointing out the truth about the South Korean puppets' rather pathetic military parade. What was distinctive about the puppets parade was that the centerpiece of it seems to have been the flypast of a US nuclear B-1B bomber. This shows very graphically that South Korea is in fact a puppet of the US imperialists. Comrade Kim Yo-jong remarked, and I quote, "The scene was so pitiful to see alone. It may be unique in the world military parade history, and the best scene, and that can only be produced in the colonial ROK," end of quotation. Of course, ROK is Republic of Korea or South Korea. The puppets also put on display the Yongmu 5 ballistic missile, which was presented as being like a nuclear intercontinental ballistic missile. Comrade Kim Yo-jong, in her statement, rips the nonsensical boasting of the puppets apart by pointing out that the missile launcher vehicle was massively oversized compared to the actual explosive power of the missiles of the missile. The South Korean puppet boss Yoon even boasted about setting up a strategic command, but South Korea does not have a single strategic weapon of its own. As say, all the strategic weapons, nuclear weapons in South Korea, of course, belong to the US, and it's the US finger on the button. As Comrade Kim Yo Jong rightly remarks, and I quote, no matter how much the dog may wear helmets, it can't be a tiger or a lion. End of quotation. This is indeed true. No one is fooled by the silly boasting and bombast of the miserable South Korean puppets. The revolutionary armed forces of People's Korea, based on Juche, would destroy the South Korean puppet army easily in a war. The South Korean puppets would be annihilated by the mighty KPA under the command of respected Marshal Kim Jong-un, an ever-victorious, iron-willed, brilliant commander. And I just sort of would add here, I've been to DPRK military parades about a number of times, about five, I think total of five times, and they're very impressive. The DPRK is best at doing military parades, and these South Korean puppets cannot possibly rival the DPRK in this. It was a silly, buffoonish attempt by the South Korean puppets to try and look better than the DPRK, but they failed. Thirdly, Channel 4 on the evening of Monday, 30th of September, screened an anti-DPRK propaganda program. Someone called Munya Shawawa, a so-called Zimbabwean defector who ran away from the progressive, anti-imperialist and independent regime of Comrade Robert Mugabe. And by the way, Robert Mugabe was a great friend of People's Korea. He visited People's Korea several times, and unfortunately, Comrade Mugabe was overthrown in 2017 by an coup backed by the imperialists and big powers. Anyway, this character, this Zimbabwean who lives in in Britain, I think in an expensive area, fronted an anti DPRK diatribe full of the usual lies about People's Korea, which have been debunked time and time again, and were based on stuff from so-called defectors. Munya Chihuahua is actually unknown in Zimbabwe. Our KFA official delegate in Zimbabwe commented when I asked him about this character as follows, and I quote, sadly, some black faces are serving Western imperialism, end of quotation. A KFA UK regional official who watched the programme said that the programme looked like it was aimed at simpletons and people with short attention spans. It was described as dumbed down anti-DPRK propaganda full of lies. The CEO, the chief executive officer of the CIA-run fake news outfit, Chad O'Carroll, appeared in the programme. O'Carroll was incorrectly described by the programme as an expert on North Korea, quote unquote. In fact, O'Carroll knows very little about the DPRK and was parachuted in from nowhere to run NK News, which is actually funded, and you can look this up, by the US Department of Defense and the US State Department. In the program, O'Carroll was seen peering into the DPRK from fascist South Korea. And we got to remember that NK News is actually based in South Korea, a fascist state, which is a colony of and puppet of the United States. O'Carroll falsely claims that villages on the DPRK side of the border with South Korea were fake. How does he know? Has he ever been to these villages? In fact, he was just repeating South Korean propaganda. In fact, I myself and UK KFA delegations have visited Kaesong and Panmunjom, the frontline areas, and can testify to the fact that the villages on the DPRK side are real and have farmers living in them who harvest crops and work on the fields. Also wheeled out in the program was a former official of the DPRK embassy in London, whose name I do not believe in using, who betrayed the DPRK just to have dollars in his pocket. This odious individual went to South Korea after being caught embezzling money and selling state secrets. He was also, and I think this is very important, accused of rape by the DPRK Central Prosecutor's Office. It can also be added that this scumbag also betrayed KFA UK by giving it is thought that this scumbag also betrayed KFA UK by giving the names of KFA UK members to the British intelligence services, but no one ever talks about this. All in all, the program was full of lies, fake experts, and traitors to the DPRK, and a lot of it was filmed in South Korea. It seems to me that there is actually a sort of nexus or cabal around The Guardian, NK News, and Channel 4, the liberal elite. And it's interesting to note that Chad O'Carroll's auntie actually works on The Guardian newspaper. Coincidence? Maybe. In the past, Channel 4 produced so-called quote-unquote documentaries about the DPRK, which are actually just hostile propaganda, one of which was Children of the Secret State. That was never filmed in the DPRK, but was actually filmed in Thailand, South Korea, and China. And the people who were presented in it as DPRK citizens were actually speaking with South Korean accent, but they passed this off as the DPRK. Channel 4 is actually owned by the British government. So it's a state broadcaster, just the same as the BBC, but it appeals perhaps to a different audience than the BBC. Channel 4 likes to be right on, trendy and liberal. You know, this sort of people who probably eat muesli or are vegans or something like that. But seriously, comrades, Channel 4 serves US imperialism and the reactionary bourgeois elites by demonizing people's career. Channel 4 are liberal fascists. Don't be fooled by liberal fascists. I urge everybody watching this broadcast to complain to Channel 4. And how about having a KFA UK picket of Channel 4 in the new year, or even at the end of this year. You know, let's see if we can muster some people together. I think it's very important that we challenge this anti-DPRK propaganda. So, on to the core subject tonight, Juche versus Trotskyism. I'm sure that's what a lot of people are watching for. And sadly, in Britain, we've got one dubious achievement, though apparently people from some other countries tell me that they are competing with Britain in this respect. We are the Trotskyite capital of the world. We have the highest per capita production of Trotskyites in the whole world. And, you know, to UK British people who are watching this, I don't know how many people from Britain are here tonight. It's a fact, if you get involved in politics, left politics, you're likely to run across Trotskyites and well-financed groups such as the SWP, that's the Socialist Workers' Party, the Socialist Party, and the so-called Revolutionary Communist Party, selling their papers in the high streets. Of course, it's interesting that these groups seem very have lots and lots of money. Back in the old Communist Party, some of the hardliners used to whisper or mumble that, in fact, the Trotskyites were funded by the British state. But, you know, I won't get involved in this. But I say, unfortunately, you know, in Britain, the only left groups you're likely to see are going to be Trotskyite groups. Regrettably, real communists are often invisible, and so are supporters of People's Career and the Juche idea. And this is a point I'm going to return to later in the broadcast, in fact, towards the end. You also run across Trotskyites in trade unions and in some universities. I'm a former member, in fact, I was a minor official of a Trotskyite-led union, the PCS. The Trotskyites in PCS were a disaster. They organised one-day strikes, which were set up to fail because they did not pay strike pay. One Trotskyite faction, the Socialist Party, gave their members cushy, well-paid jobs at PCS HQ. Anyway, before people think I'm straying off the subject, bring it back to why I'm making this live stream about on the subject of Juche versus Trotskyism. Trotskyists are usually quite hostile to the DPRK and to concepts like independence and national identity. Often they help bourgeois propaganda against the DPRK by giving a sort of quote unquote left gloss to it. I'm not going to go into a lengthy explanation or analysis of Trotskyism here. It's a little bit outside the remit of the broadcasts. Just relate a few things. On one of my first ever visits to the DPRK back in the 1990s, I asked about Trotskyism, and the answer came from one of my guides. Trotsky, he was the most famous revisionist, quote unquote. Trotskyism is in fact a form of revisionism. It's not actually ultra left. It's a form of revisionism because it actually rejects the dictatorship of the proletariat and the leading role of the party. A few years ago, I think about 4 years ago, Rudon Simon, the daily newspaper of the Workers' Party of Korea, carried an article titled "The Dirty Traitor of Socialism," which was about Trotsky. And it said, and I'll quote from the article, Trotsky revealed his dirty nature when Lenin chose Stalin as his successor. Losing his sanity, he, Trotsky, became a fanatic in anti-Lenin, anti-Stalin, and counter-revolutionary maneuvers. He criticized the construction of socialism in the Soviet Union as a fantasy and promoted the absurd sophistry, including super-industrialization. In particular, he tried to break the foundations of the dictatorship of the proletariat. The day before he died, Lenin, in his bed, called Trotsky Judas, traitor. With Lenin's death, Trotsky's behavior became even more treacherous. Finally, Trotsky was expelled from the party and deported from the country. Trotsky then brought together the renegades of the labor movement to lead the counter-revolutionary sect called the Fourth International and challenged the struggle of the working class until his death in 1940 in a foreign country, leaving an unpleasant mark in history as a dirty conspirator. Trotsky's betrayal shows that if loyalty and trust in the leader are not based on noble ethics and pure conscience, they are not genuine. End of quotation. So, what has Trotskyism achieved in practice, and what has Juche achieved in practice? Well, Trotskyism achieved nothing, and I'm just going to refer to this handy book here, and I don't know if don't know everyone can see this illustration here, which shows you the number of socialist countries that Trotsky actually led, or successful revolutions, I should say, by Trotskyism. And this is from a book called Quite Right, Mr. Trotsky. You can download a free copy online, and the book has some wonderful cartoons in it. I think some of the text in it, some of the content in it, however, was wrong. It was actually trying to make out Trotskyism was ultra left, when in fact Trotskyism is, as I said earlier, revisionism. Well, as I said, Trotskyism achieved absolutely nothing, zero. In the UK, the Trotskyite militant tendency, which were then an entryist group in the Labour Party, once took over Liverpool City Council. Thus, the Trotskyites, who criticised the idea of socialism in one country, decided to go off and try to build socialism in one English city, not one country, but one city. Needless, they only succeeded in bankrupting the council, sacking staff, putting up the rates, burdening working class ratepayers, and borrowing from Swiss capitalist banks. In Sri Lanka in 1971, the Trotskyite LSSP was part of a coalition with the revisionists and social democrats. They ended up borrowing money from capitalist banks, from the IMF. It seems to be a Trotskyite thing, borrowing money from capitalist banks, and worse still, actually put down an uprising by communist revolutionaries of the People's Liberation Front, the JVP, and did so with the help of the US imperialists, Britain and India. So much for Trotskyism, it is totally counter-revolutionary. It's absolutely useless and achieved nothing. What has Juche achieved? Well, thanks to Juche and the leadership of the great leaders, the DPRK is the most independent state with an advanced socialist system and its own nuclear weapons. In People's Korea, there is free housing and free healthcare. There is low-cost public transport. It is only the equivalent of 3p in British money to use the Pyongyang metro, and it is free for the disabled and honoured war veterans. Citizens of the DPRK receive food at very low prices, including 2 litres of beer per day. People's Korea abolished taxation in March 1974. Many people in countries such as the UK wrongly associate taxation with socialism. How many times have you heard, "You lefties just want to put taxes up," or "We can't vote Labour because they will put up taxes"? In the imperialist Western past, very limited programs of social reform were not funded through radical redistribution of wealth, but through taxation. In other words, the working people had to pay for the services they were meant to benefit from. When you think about it, you have to pay twice for prescriptions because you're paying tax and national insurance, but at the same time you're paying for the cost of the medicine. So the capitalist state is actually making money out of you, not giving it to you. Because People's Korea has a unique socialist system, it is able to fund a high level of social and public services. The revenues of state-owned industries are used to fund social and public services. The DPRK is based on 100% socialist ownership. That means production, distribution, and exchange. It completed the socialist transformation production relations a long time ago. There's no private companies in People's Korea. People's Korea is probably the most egalitarian society in the world, and certainly the most egalitarian society that I've ever visited. People's Korea does not have homeless people or beggars or lumpens, and there are no riots in People's Korea. And the citizens of the DPRK are looking forward to the bright future of socialism and communism. And I just would like to add one interesting footnote on the subject. The Trotskyite Party in Argentina, the Workers' Revolutionary Party or Revolutionary Workers' Party, the PRT, ERP, actually abandoned Trotskyism and supported Juche, and they went to the 1977 International Seminar on the Juche idea in Pyongyang, and I'll just show people. There you are. There is a picture of their contribution to the international seminar on the Juche idea. So that sort of concludes my remarks on the subject of Juche versus Trotskyism. It's an interesting subject. I think perhaps could say more, and no doubt there'll be a few questions in the live stream. And earlier I said, you know, unfortunately, supporters of People's Korea and the Juche idea are often invisible. And this is something that we really need to change. We need to be upping our game. And defending people's career with no ifs or buts shouldn't be confined to Telegram or Facebook or Twitter or YouTube. We need people at our meetings and events. You can make a difference. And in my opinion, it's far better to be at the meeting than hearing something or reading something online. And you can meet people with the similar ideas as yourself. Of course, we do organise online meetings because there's a high cost of travel in the UK, and also to give our friends from other countries a chance to join in. But we need far, far more people than we've had in the past actually attending our real life events and our online events. As I say, please do not just see putting like on Facebook or listening to a live stream as the limit of your activities. We need to go well beyond that. We've got a meeting on the 12th of October in central London. I shall be putting the venue details out a bit nearer the time, but please register for that meeting and you'll be sent details of the venue early. And at that meeting, we're hoping to have a presentation which will be titled Why Juche, which will explain what Juche is, why it is relevant to Britain, and how we can implement it in Britain. So it should be a great meeting. Meanwhile, on the 7th of October, we've got an online meeting. Again, if you register for that, we'll send you the link. We've got a meeting coming up in Liverpool on the 7th of November, and we're probably going to do a picket of the BBC in November as well. And we're trying to organise a meeting in Taunton as well, but that's likely to be in the new year. So it's all systems go in KFA UK, in the British group for the study of the Juche idea. We're defending people's career with no ifs or buts, and we will hope you will join us in our important mission. So I will stop there and I will start answering the questions. Hope I haven't missed any, and I'll just sort of start going down the chat and greeting people, because I think a lot of people joined whilst I was talking. So hello to comrades from the People's Career Initiative of Poland. Hello to our dear friend from Turkey. Hello to all other comrades. There are quite a lot of people saying hello. Yeah, I mean, and it's always been a lot of anti-Zimbabwe propaganda. Yeah, I could make a longer analysis of Trotskyism. It's a subject I felt it was important to mention. Firstly, it followed on from my video about Orwell, and of course, Orwell was a sort of Trotskyite. He had a foot in that camp. You know, but even Trotskyites weren't good enough for Orwell. But it's something I can consider. Yes, and hello, Gregor McIntosh. Yes, I agree. Trotskyism never achieved nothing but more trouble, and I think as a lot of people have been pointing out, it misled a lot of people, it confused a lot of people, and it took people away from genuine revolutionary parties. Yes, I agree. The stuff said about Zimbabwe was very similar to the propaganda against people's career. Yes, both Fidel and Che Guevara both attacked Trotskyism, and I know there was a very good quote from Che about Trotsky, and I believe Che said that Trotsky was actually similar to Khrushchev. With Cambodia, the late King Norodom Sihanouk, if I pronounced that name rightly, uh, who was Prince Sihanouk, was a good friend of the DPRK, and of course he was actually very anti-imperialist, and he wrote a book called My War with the CIA, which was co-written with the Australian progressive journalist Wilfred Burchett. And we got to remember that Prince Sihanouk was actually overthrown by a pro-US coup led by Lon Nol in 1970, and the DPRK stretched out the hand of friendship to him. Well, what's interesting question? What Pol Pot thought of the DPRK? Appar- uh, apparently, according to Sihanouk, Pol Pot actually thought the DPRK had raised living standards too high. He seemed to think it was actually quite decadent to improve living standards. Yes, liberals are ironically quoting Marx in universities. Well, just to answer the point by ideology explained, yeah, this is a figure they bandy about. Seen different figures, but they're all false. And as you say, capitalism killed hundreds of millions of people through colonialism, uh, through overwork, and it's still killing people. And in the UK, they've actually cut the winter fuel payments to old age pensioners, and some of them will die in the winter. They will freeze to death. I mean, I agree with the comment by Joseph Stalin about permanent revolution. No, he never actually said used the term that Marxism was outdated. Like practical question: when is the next meeting KFA UK? In Scotland, that's a very good point. We haven't had a meeting in Scotland since 2019. We've got a representative in Scotland. He's not actually with us here tonight on the live stream, unfortunately. But I suggest that you contact him, or I will uh, contact him when he comes back uh, to the country, and we can try and organise a KFA UK meeting for Scotland. Right, so many. This seems to generated many questions tonight. Yeah, I'm just answer about the portraits. The portraits of Marx and Lenin are displayed at the rebuilt Central Cadres Training School that was reopened in the DPRK a few months ago. With regard to the Middle East, I would say that all the trouble is propagated by the US. No, I mean, we couldn't operate. I don't think you could really operate Juche within the framework of the British monarchy, because the British monarchy is actually a prop of the capitalist system. In fact, it's an integral part of the capitalist system and part of British imperialism. So it would have to be got rid of. Well, again, again, we've subject of illegal immigration. It is, uh, again, it's a bit off topic, but obviously, I do not support illegal immigration, but I think the scale of it is greatly exaggerated by the far right and by some sections of the media, like the Daily Mail. I don't believe that it exists on the scale that some people are trying to suggest it does. And of course, uh, illegal immigration is often associated with crime and exploitation. It's people smugglers doing it, who charge people huge sums of money to be brought into the UK, and they're often end up in sort of slave labour jobs. Now, I don't know much about the Moranbong watch factory. I've never been there. I mean, I don't know about whether you the question about the Chelima steel factory. Do you mean the Chelima steel complex? In fact, I haven't been to it, but I've been near it and I've been past it several times. I've been to the uh, Dian heavy machine complex, which is a massive factory in the DPRK with about 30,000 uh, workers. Well, this is an interesting point about Juche being seen as strange by the Western public, and about a new term being invented to describe Juche uh, in uh, in English. And I think basically I'm not sure which term you would use. You could use independence, but Juche actually means more than that. And again, you could say self-reliance, but again, self-reliance is just part of Juche. I think people will have should get used to uh, the use of the word Juche as a distinctive term that's come from the Korean language. Right. Are teachers well paid in the DPRK? Uh, yes, they're well paid, but in the DPRK, the highest paid workers are workers in dangerous jobs like miners, like heavy industry. It's a big subject to explain the educational system in the DPRK. There's whole books on it. I would just briefly explain it as follows. Education in the DPRK is free at all levels, right from kindergarten to university. There is a 12-year compulsory educational system in the DPRK, and there's preschool education in the DPRK, there's creches and kindergartens. After people leave senior middle school in the DPRK, it's not called high school, it's called senior middle school. They can, if they've got the right grades, if they've got good grades, they can go on to university. In the DPRK, university courses are usually 4 years. The students are provided with uniforms and free accommodation and subsidised food. And uh, that's a brief explanation of the education system. I would suggest that you read the work of President Kim Il Sung, the thesis on socialist education, which was published in 1977. Right. The JVP rebellions in Sri Lanka. Now, I know uh, a bit about the 1971 JVP uprising. Don't know much about the one in the 1980s. And as far as I know, I mean, with the 1971 uprising, the DPRK, yes, it had a relationship with the JVP, and it supplied them with books, but the rest of the charges against the DPRK were exaggerated, basically. And I'm not clear about the JVP rebellion in the 80s. I think Wikipedia claims that the DPRK supported it, but I've heard nothing to suggest that they did. But yeah, the JVP is a party that the DPRK have had relations with, but they've had relations with other groups in Sri Lanka as well. With regard to BRICS, the DPRK positively appraises BRICS as a counter to US imperialism and sort of embodying the idea of South-South cooperation. I've not seen anything so far that suggests that the DPRK is going to make a formal application to become a full member of BRICS. I've not seen that, and I can't really comment further. Are all DPRK supports socialists, or are they flunkists that want the DPRK to abandon socialism to work with the US? And yeah, I would say all honest, real supporters of the DPRK support the Juche idea, support Juche socialism. Uh, Not everybody is a socialist who supports the DPRK. Some people support the DPRK because they believe in independence and they believe a country has the right to sovereignty. And with regard to this bit of a little bit of a controversial question. Yeah, I mean, there's some people who, I don't really want to get into this, but there's some people who say they support the DPRK, but uh, they want the DPRK to abandon socialism, abandon Juche, and to open up to the US. There's fake friends of the DPRK who will say, "Oh, but I support the DPRK," but they don't really. Uh, and in Britain, we've got a character called Glyn Ford, a former Labour MEP, member of the European Parliament. Thank God for Brexit. We can't, you know, we're not. We're not sort of bound by the EU, and we don't send people to the useless European Parliament. But anyway, uh, some people would say that Glyn Ford is a friend of the DPRK, but his books are quite hostile to the DPRK. He wrote a book called North Korea on the Brink, which was quite hostile. And he's recently produced a picture book of the DPRK, good in some parts, bad in other parts. And he's included pictures to try and show the DPRK in a negative light. And rather unfortunately, the Morning Star, which styles itself the socialist daily newspaper, in fact, it's a revisionist newspaper, which is heavily reliant on funding from trade union bureaucrats, and they promoted this book by Ford. But I mean, he is an example of a two-faced individual. Right. I would sort of say to the question from Ideology Explained, I think Juche can work in all countries, but uh, it must be creatively applied according to the conditions of whichever country. Uh, you can't copy the Juche idea, like a photocopy or a carbon copy. You cannot do that. It's got to be adapted to the local conditions. And in fact, if you try to sort of copy it, it would actually go against the Juche idea to do that. But yeah, I think it would work in most countries. Yes, I mean, with regard to Nazis, no one should be saying that Nazi Germany had the best standard of living in the world. We don't have a place for people like that in our ranks. Well, I think the education system in the DPRK is much better than the UK. For one thing, in the DPRK, it's free of charge to go to university. In the UK, it's at least £9,000 per year in tuition fees, plus the student or his or her parent would have to also find money for books, for rent, for clothes, and for food. And with regard to which university they can go to, well, obviously to the most appropriate one for the vocation they're choosing. The DPRK, as in all socialist countries, has a vocational rather than academic educational system. And yeah, you can study abroad if you live in the DPRK, and some DPRK students have studied abroad, and some were studying in Britain. A fun fact uh, is that Finnish Social Democrats and Socialists admired the DPRK education system in the early 70s. Yeah, I mean, Finland used to have a lot of pro-DPRK people in it. In fact, Finland even had communists. Okay, they were revisionists in the government. Uh, yeah, for a time, I think in the 70s. So I mean, but unfortunately, Finland's gone downhill. It's become a NATO member because some DPRK supporters like to withhold China as better socialists. Do you not mean uphold China as better? Well, uh, again, a bit controversial. Yeah, I mean, yeah, some people like China better than the DPRK, but I would say the DPRK is the best socialist country. And also, some people would say that China is not socialist, and certainly my own experience, which I don't want to go on about too much here, is I've travelled through China many times on my way to the DPRK. Remember, one of the first things you see when you get out the plane at Beijing Airport is KFC and McDonald's. You don't see that when you get out the plane in Pyongyang. And back in 1996, myself and the another comrade from the British group of the study, the Juche idea, we were coming back on the train from the DPRK from Pyongyang to Beijing. Went through DPRK border control at Sinuiju and over the river to Dadong on the Chinese side. As soon as we got onto the Chinese side, we saw Chinese yuppies with mobile phones and people trying to come into the train to sell us stuff. And my comrade remarked that China looked like it had a different social system to the DPRK, but I'll leave it there. Oh, so many questions tonight. Tito is work of self-management. Again, it's not a subject I know a lot about. Uh, Titoism or work of self-management did have support on the British left years ago, usually from Labour Party. Uh, yeah, Labour Party members rather than communists. Yeah, all I can say that the DPRK have the Tian system of collective management, which is a form of genuine worker control. I believe in Yugoslavia, the Titoist system actually had capitalist elements in it. And it may not have been a genuine self management, but it's not a subject I've studied. And as I say, Yugoslavia is a complex subject. It's a question about Slavic lands and Slavic peoples. Again, bit outside my remit. I can't answer when Slavic lands and people get united. Maybe one day. I think most of the socialist countries during the Cold War had mass protests and riots. Well, I mean, there was certainly counter-revolutionary disturbances that happened. Right. Can you say more about life in the DPRK? Well, again, this is a big topic, and we're nearing the end of the live stream. I mean, this would take a lot of time to answer. All I can say briefly is that in the DPRK, there's full employment. Everybody has jobs. You've got free housing, so that everyone has a home. When you get married, you can get a new flat. Workers in arduous and heavy jobs can work for 6 or 7 hours. The normal work day is an 8-hour one, and healthcare is free, education is free. There's many recreational and leisure facilities in the DPRK. They're expanding them all the time. So that is basically life in the DPRK in a nutshell. I would suggest people read my book Travels in the Land of Juche, Korea, which is about my visits to the DPRK, and you'll find more information in that. It's free of charge to read, and I shall put a link in the description in the chat. So you don't have to pay anything. Just trying to get down to all these. Right. Well, that's a good question about. Oh, just missed one. Jimmy Carter just turned 100 years old. And yes, he had travelled to the DPRK for negotiations of the nuclear question. What about was the DPRK relations like with Carter as president? Well, the answer is they were actually bad. Carter claimed when he was running for president he would actually withdraw the US troops from South Korea, which would have been a big change. But of course, he never did that. So at the time, the DPRK had a very negative opinion of him. And in the 90s, he was sent as an unofficial envoy of Clinton to negotiate with the DPRK. Well, this question of Slav unity might be very important, but this is a live stream about the DPRK and the Juche idea, not about the question of Slav unity. Right. Why does protests and riots never happen in the DPRK? Well, there's several reasons for that. I think the main reason is that you've got single-hearted unity in the DPRK, which is not seen in other countries or in other socialist countries. There's sort of an unbreakable iron unity of the people, the leader, and the party in the DPRK. And they're all united because on the basis of the Juche idea. And also, you've got nothing to write about in the DPRK. I mean, in Britain, about 6 weeks ago or 2 months ago, we had severe riots in many parts of the country, which were incited by the far right, but the underlying causes of the riots were sort of poverty and unemployment and exploitation and bad housing. So DPRK citizens have got no reason for discontent, and that's why that is the other reason you don't get riots. And you've got a sort of high level of cohesion in the DPRK that you don't have in other countries, and you don't have lumpens or criminals in the DPRK. Yeah, I mean, briefly, yeah, most people in the DPRK are atheist. There's a small number of Christians. There's a Protestant church, Catholic church, obviously, and a Russian Orthodox church. There are Buddhist temples, and there's the native Korean religion of Chondoism. But most people are atheists. The US Air Force did more to destroy Christianity in the DPRK than anyone else by bombing many churches, and also the US Army massacred many Christians. Many Christians after the Korean War in the DPRK abandoned their beliefs because they were disgusted with the US and they saw Christianity as a US import. Yes, Bush did ruin uh, uh, DPRK US relations. Well, with regard to the Orthodox Church, well, DPRK has freedom of religion, and it was in line with this. Well, the DPRK has its own video games. I don't know if they are formally banned or not, but there's many excellent DPRK video games. And of course, yes, the DPRK does oppose bourgeois and imperialist ideological and cultural infiltration. Yes, McDonald's totally horrible. Yes, the DPRK is a country built for workers by workers. With regard to DPRK, people working abroad in foreign companies or government sectors. I think the uh, main thing to remember uh, is that the UN in 2017 banned DPRK citizens from working abroad. Okay, well, I think I've tried to cover most questions. If you think I haven't, just quickly comment in the live chat, and I'll reply, because I'm going to sort of close it now. We've been going for nearly an hour and 10 minutes, and we've got a lot of people tonight. And you know, just to sort of announce, I'm working on a new book called The Socialist Fortress of Juche. Our good friend from Poland, from the People's Career Initiative, has done a front cover for it. I'm hoping to sort of complete it within the next 2 days. I've got a very busy schedule, but I hope to get it completed, and that should be sort of out maybe next week, or maybe a bit later. Yes, we all hate the US for what it did in Korea. Anyway, I think we've had a good live stream tonight. We've covered a lot of subjects. Unfortunately, not enough time to answer in detail a couple of questions, which were quite wide in their scope. I apologise for that. I think we need a lot more time with some of the questions. So thank everybody for joining. I'm sure more people are going to watch this later when it's saved. And I wish everybody a good evening, and remind people we've got an online meeting uh, on the 7th of October. It's about the 79th anniversary of the Workers' Party Korea, and we're relaunching the British Group for the Study of the Juche on 12th of October, and we're going to have a presentation by Juche at that meeting. Now, I hope more and more people will get involved in our campaigns, in our activities in KFA UK, the British Group for the Study of the Juche idea, and not just passive involvement, active involvement. And I forgot to mention that a new KFA UK supporter in Wales has actually been giving out leaflets, and this is the sort of proactive approach we need. And a KFA branch in another country is apparently planning to set up KFA societies in universities. We need to be doing that in Britain. I've been saying it for years, but we need to finally go and do that. So let's go forward together and defend people's career with no ifs or buts. Thank you again for being with me tonight. I think it's been brilliant, and see you all again soon. Goodbye, comrades.